Hey guys, Henning and Morten from FlippedNormals here. In this video, we are going to be showing you how we can use the FlippedNormals creature kit to create some pretty interesting characters right away. This is a kit we made which contains around 170 vector brushes, which has stuff like ears, horns, a bunch of base meshes, some anatomy features, essentially anything you need in order to create some cool characters right away. It's currently on sale for the next week or so. Check the description for a link there. Should be interesting.
Yeah, it's currently 20% off. Yeah. So, if this is something you've been looking to pick up, definitely swing by the site.
The cool thing about this kit is that you can start with a base mesh like this, and you can just drag and drop some features like we have a monkey nose and we have some weird eyes and ears, and you can just very quickly drag it out like this. The point here isn't necessarily to get to like the final result, but more so that you can quickly concept something up. When it comes to concepting creatures, what you often spend a lot of time on is it's not just so much the designing part, it's more the actual sculpting part. So you might be spending a lot of time just getting the ears to look right and sculpting the horns, getting the technical parts right, like making sure the eyes look good. The cool thing about this is that you can now just drag and drop a couple different variations for it, and then you can keep refining it afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the ears that we're using in this first example here, that was just, took a second or two. Yeah. And then you have a pretty nice ear shape. You can always go in and modify this if this is not exactly what you want, or, just use any of the other, 10, 12 ears that are also included in the pack. So it takes away a lot of the laborious labor from the design process and just lets you sort of be more creative with the shapes, I think.
You can also actually convert the vector brushes back to geometry, keep sculpting on them, and then you can make your own from them. We also have some like lumps and that kind of stuff, just if you want to experiment with more, like maybe this character is a sick character, he has fungi all over him, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think this kit is just super useful, and just because we've been able to create some designs in 20, 30 minutes that would probably have taken us hours to do before, just because of the freedom you get with the creature kit of just dragging stuff out.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can get refined designs in like half an hour. Yeah. So then instead of spending a whole day on you get 2 designs out, you can get like 10 designs out. We also have these anatomy features as well, where you can just drag out pieces of the skull. We also have stuff like abs and pecs and these kind of things, which is really cool.
So if you want to put abs on the face, you can totally do that.
You can do that. We also found some interesting things where we kind of surprise ourselves with what you can do with it, where if you do put abs on the ear, maybe you get something interesting there.
Yeah. I once did one where I used some of the, I think it was like fantasy horns to create wings from it. Just because you can push the brushes to like to the extremes, but the ZBrush mesh will also start to like give you artifacts. But sometimes those artifacts can actually look pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Now I just accidentally dragged out an ear into the eye, which maybe you get something interesting that way. This kit was also inspired by when we worked in production on Pacific Rim 2. We had to do a lot of kaiju designs for Pacific Rim 2, and we just had to sculpt a lot of different things. But you had to sculpt it all by hand. Yeah. And if we had this kit during it, that would have saved us so much time. But unfortunately, we didn't make this until after production was done for it.
Damn it.
But this would have like legit sped it up by maybe 4 or 5 times, at least the amount of variations we could have done.
Yeah. Yeah, and the cool thing is, I think for just like pure concepting, this is where this really shines, but you can always then take it afterwards and then go in and refine it and then have your final mesh or your final character done after that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're doing in this video. We do 3 really quick designs, like, we're talking a minute 2 each, and then we take one of them, our favorite, and we just really pimp that up afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, because once you that's really it's the same thing when you're drawing. Once you have your line art, everything's in place, filling in like the details. That's, I don't know, for me, that's the faster part and the more enjoyable part. Yeah. Like sometimes the design part is also fun, but it can be annoying to sort of have to fight against the tool a little bit. Like again with ears, I think ears is such a good example. Like the kind of, I don't know, goat ears or
yeah, exactly. I think this is exactly goat ears.
Like having to sculpt those before, like it just takes a while.
Yeah.
And with something more intricate like a human ear, where you have like everything that goes on with the helix, anti-helix, everything inside the ear, that just takes a while. And if you can speed up that process by just basically having it for free, I think it's totally worth it.
And when you're a beginner, you definitely don't want to skip the stages of learning how to sculpt ears and horns and all that kind of stuff. You still got to do that. So don't use this as a crutch for it. But this is more, once you get to a point where, you're pretty happy with your own sculpting skills and you don't have to prove to anyone that you can sculpt an eye.
Yeah.
Like when we're doing this, we know that we can sculpt an eye. If Morten is using the kit and he made an ear, I'm not going to be like, can you really do an ear?
Oh, that looks like a creature kit ear to me.
Yeah, exactly. What we care about when you're designing is you have cool designs.
Yeah.
That's what people photo bash as well. And you could totally photo bash instead of doing this. The cool thing about this, though, is that you get it in 3D.
Yeah, but just look at this. This is one of my favorite horns.
Oh, it's so good.
And the character changes drastically depending on the angle, the size, stuff like that. But there's so many horns to choose from as well. So I think for people, I would say it can be good for beginners to test it out to see what kind of shapes look good. Maybe try and replicate them and stuff like that. But especially for intermediate users and up, it's just gonna speed up your workflow a lot. So I think that's where it really starts to become beneficial.
Yeah, exactly. And also, if you want to make your own kit, we have a video on how to do that. We have a video on how to make your own custom VDM brushes in ZBrush, and we're using the exact same technique in that video as we used to make this kit here.
Yeah, there's you follow the official Pixologic guidelines of how to create VDM brushes. Your brushes aren't going to work.
No.
We found out the hard way, so we had to come up with our own way of doing it and a way that actually works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the reason why you probably want to get this kit instead of making your own is just because it takes a long time.
How long did it take us?
I think this took around 3 months to make.
Yeah.
Because I think it is 173 brushes,
Something
custom
like that,
brushes. Yeah. And then you have something like 10 meshes or so, like base meshes.
Yeah, there's base meshes included as
so
well.
that includes like the bust we're using here, which is really nice and generic one. You have like a female one, a male one. You have something which resembles strangely a kaiju, which who knows why that is.
And a dog thing?
Yeah, exactly. We have like a generic quadruped.
Yeah. Do we have a T-Rex?
Yeah, we have a T-Rex.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, there's a T-Rex.
I just thought about that. Yeah, we have a T-Rex.
Yeah.
Don't think about that too much.
So the cool thing now, we have a character here, which, I mean, this took literally just a few minutes to sculpt up, and it's clearly not done. But, this is going to have the same personality and the same feeling as the final one. It's just not refined yet.
Yeah, I mean, you can, using your artistic eye, and your artistic imagination, you can imagine where something like this could go. Yeah, so exactly. It's more about seeing the potential. Like Henning said, it's not about having final sculpts by just dragging out the creature kit. That would be insane.
Yeah.
Because you actually have to do some work as well. But what it just allows you is just to speed up the whole design process. And if you're working as a concept artist or like a 3D concept artist, character artist, especially if you're doing freelance, this I think could help you a lot, just because it cuts down the time, and you can just iterate on different designs. Something that would take you a couple of days might only take you a few hours now.
Exactly. We also included an interface here as well, which you can see with all these nice little icons and most of the features you would need. So what we're doing now is zero meshing the model and projecting it as well, so that you're no longer constrained by dynameshing, whatever it might be, and you're not restrained to shitty topology. Now you have good, clean topology, which is now projected onto a new one. So you see nice, clean topology.
Nice, clean, non-production friendly topology.
Definitely.
Maybe with Zero Measure 3 or something. We actually saw that. We saw like a really cool example of like a stylized dog with that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really nice. So now this is where pure hardcore sculpting comes in.
Yeah, and like now you filled in your lines, and now it's just about coloring inside basically.
Yeah. This part here is really the easier part for me, because now it really is fill in the colors. Before it's really come up with an interesting design, come up with interesting shapes. But this is the part I can put up in podcasts and just kind of relax with the work. When it comes to designing, I need absolute silence, and I have to think about every single decision I do, because that is so important. Another cool use case for this as well is if you're an art director, then you can just whip out a bunch of different designs, and then you can have your character artist actually take those designs to a more refined state as well.
Yeah, I think maybe a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people actually know, but when you're doing concept art for like film, like the 3D concept art, the characters don't look good. I mean, they look like absolute trash. But it's not the point. They're not supposed to look like refined models. The proportions aren't really supposed to be amazing. They're just supposed to be super quick turnovers, where the art director or the director can get a feel for what the character kind of looks like. So you might see some of those in production and go, I mean, this looks like it's sculpted by a 2-year-old. But it doesn't matter because it conveys like the core idea of the character.
Yeah, we've seen this a lot where you pick up a concept sculpt and you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
It's broken in every single way you could break something. But like Morten said, it has the weight and the idea and everything is there.
Yeah, it's the same thing when you see concept art, like 2D concept art for, let's say, something like games or something. You don't necessarily, when you have something that's like photo bashed together for characters, it doesn't necessarily always look that good, but you have all the ideas of the character, the personality and everything is in there, and then you can go and refine it afterwards.
Yeah, you start to develop your imagination once you're working with concept art, because then you, if you're presenting something to a client, you gotta just go full on, because they can't really imagine things. But if you're talking internally in a team, and you were to do something like this, everyone can see the potential in it, and then you can spend a long time refining this.
Yeah, I think that's something that we've discovered more and more working with clients, is that regular people kind of lack that, like they lack the imagination of when you go, okay, this isn't final, this is like the concept, this is how I want it to feel like, but it looks like trash. I guess so. That's the annoying thing about working with clients sometimes, is that you actually have to present something that's more final than it needs to be. Yeah,
and then you do these 10th versions, and you spend time, and you know it's going to be thrown away just because you literally can't imagine it.
Exactly.
So that can be quite infuriating. But that's a cool thing about doing something like this when it comes to the creature kit, is if you're doing that with kit bash or with photo bashing, then you're nowhere near the final result, because now it's just photo bashed together and it's in 2D. The cool thing about this, it's actually in 3D, and you can now do a photo bashing pass on top of this in Photoshop, or quick textures, and you can do turntables off it. And you get way closer to the final result than if you just were to draw this.
Yeah, I mean, no one says that you have to, stick to one medium. I remember we got one of the creators on the FlippedNormals marketplace, Stefan Muta Richards, I think. Amazing concept artist.
He's so good.
And I was really surprised about his use of 3D. Like when he does environments, like you should check him out on ArtStation, or on the FlippedNormals marketplace. When he does concept art, there's so much 3D involved for getting, the perspective down, getting depth in your picture, and then photo bashing and obviously painting on top of it. It's just such a efficient workflow instead of having to build everything from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna do that. It just takes far too much time. You're gonna cheat as much as you can. That's also why we included, you can see the eyeballs we just put in a few minutes ago, that they're also included. We include a cat eye, and we include a more human eye. Yeah. Because then you don't have to worry about that at all.
It's like it seems like such a trivial thing. Oh yeah, an eyeball. I'll just extrude in there. Yeah, but maybe you'll spend 5 minutes doing it. The whole goal of this kit is to save you time. Yeah. So it's been optimized for time saving.
Yeah, one thing which is really annoying when you're doing any kind of concept art is if it breaks your flow.
Yeah.
You're sitting there and designing, it's a good time, and then now you got to sharpen your pencil or something, and you're like, Or
your pencil breaks.
Yeah, pencil breaks, it's the worst. But it is really interesting how concept art is evolving, because it used to be very much like, if you look at the 1980s, you're looking at like maybe oil paintings, or you're looking at the Star Wars concept art, like the proper paintings and illustrations. Yeah. But what we're seeing today is it becomes way more mixed media.
Yeah.
Where if you're a concept artist, there are of course different kinds of them, but you're most likely incorporating some kind of 3D into your workflow. And if you haven't, then we highly recommend that you do. I mean, if it's this kit or whatever it might be, just in general, it's going to really save you so much time.
I mean, if you are looking into concept art and like how to sort of like speed it up, again, I'd really refer back to Stefan's training that he has on the FlippedNormals marketplace, because it's super tight and it's really good workflow, I think.
Yeah, it really is. So everything we're doing so far and for the rest of the video is essentially just refining it. And so far, everything has been real time as well. It just shows you how quickly you can get something up and running.
Yeah.
So we're talking now, like, this is around 15 minutes, and you have a character you could actually present.
Yeah.
Do a quick render of this guy, maybe do a quick photo bashing on him in Photoshop, and you have actually a version you could present to a client.
Yeah, I just love playing around with it. Not necessarily finishing pieces with it.
No, we don't do that.
Just dragging stuff out and seeing what I can make with it. And also doing weird stuff. I think that's one of the things that I love about this kit, is trying to like not necessarily use a horn as a horn. Maybe what you can always do is like you can always invert the brushes. So maybe you take one of the fantasy horns and you hold down Alt, and then all of a sudden there's just like a big gouge in the character. So there's many different use cases, and I would love to see more of the stuff that people create with the creature kit. Just because, the internet can imagine many more things than we can.
Yeah, turns out. Also, there is a free version of it as well, which we're of course linking to in the description, which has one of each category as a brush. I just really enjoy sculpting like this. It's now that, we're not doing this full time anymore, we don't really get a whole lot of time to sculpt. So it's really nice to be able to do these kind of videos and just, have fun with some designs and just play around with different things.
But you can see, I mean, from where we were maybe 10 minutes ago, not a lot has changed in terms of the character itself. Still overall the same character, but we're starting to build up that additional detail that the creature kit doesn't give you. It doesn't give you like the fat and like all the skin folds and that kind of stuff. But that's not the point. It's supposed to give you, the feel of the character. Any other unexpected ways you've used the creature kit before?
I'm thinking you can maybe use it for like environments. You could probably, even this kit here, you could do like, let's say you have like a skull cave or something like that.
Yeah.
You could probably use this to create some pretty interesting, organic and nice environments.
You could have like fossilized caves or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Where there's just hints of human features sticking out. Like horns going across or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I'm also curious if you could convert it to different software as well. Like if you could use this in Blender. If you obviously the brushes won't work it by themselves, but the geometry. If you could export this out and do that. I mean, if somebody wants to download the free version and try it out to Blender and get back to us.
Does Blender support VDMs? Do you know that?
I actually have no idea. So yeah, I would love to hear if somebody would actually convert it for us.
That would be interesting.
That would be really cool, because we have actually had a fair few requests for doing this for Blender.
Well, maybe it does support VDMs then.
Yeah, maybe. If only there was a way to check that.
Oh yeah. Did we uninstall Blender again?
We keep installing and uninstalling it.
Yeah. My favorite feature about Blender is that I can just take the folder and just put it in the trash.
Oh, this video was going so well until now, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh no, we're in trouble again. When it comes to sculpting these kind of things as well, the more I know about the fundamentals, the better it really is going to be. If you know all about how the skull works and the fatty tissues of the face and facial expressions and all that kind of stuff, you're just going to have a way better experience sculpting.
Yeah.
Also, as a little tip, put a mirror next to you when you're sculpting. Like getting like a nice little vanity mirror from IKEA. It's first off, you can look at your pretty face all day long, but second off, you can use it for facial expressions.
Yeah, and it's also really nice for just feeling. Like you look at yourself and you feel, okay, how, and then you can see like, okay, when I push here on the cheekbone, how far does it really go in? Okay, maybe, because that helps me to figure out how much bone should be there. And so a mirror is definitely super pro tip.
One thing I like to think about as well whenever I'm sculpting these kind of things is, this is something we talk about in a lot of our videos, but starting off with what should it feel like if you're starting off, oh, this is a evil gnome character. Now suddenly you are going to be, your shape language and everything is going to be way different. But if you're thinking about this is going to be a nice, friendly character, everything you're doing is just going to have a different brushstroke feeling to it. So
you kind of want to keep that in mind. Like, okay, if it's soft and happy, maybe use softer and more happier brushstrokes. Yeah, that's right. It really does make a difference.
Exactly. Like that's the whole what should it feel like? It really sounds like such art school bullshit. And in some cases, it kind of can be if you take it too far. But I use it in a more practical sense. Like this guy here, he's supposed to feel like a nice, friendly character. So then you give him, you make him soft. You make the pressure. It goes back into like the whole pressure of your brush. Everything just goes back into the feeling you want.
Yeah, it's like if you have a soft and friendly character, maybe you want to limit how much you use something like a trim dynamic and polish brushes, to avoid some of those harsher features. Using a softer alpha with your clay buildup, it really does make a difference, and also how hard you push on your tablet actually.
Yeah, exactly. Like if somebody asks me for feedback and it's a character, and like a generic character in like an A pose, the very first thing I'll ask is, what do you want it to feel like? Because I can't just give generic feedback onto something.
No.
Of course, if something is horribly broken, you can say that. But if you're talking about really improving it, what kind of emotion do you want to convey with this?
Yeah, I think we've talked about shape language like that before, where, I don't know, if you look at someone like, what's that old Disney cartoon? The one with the witch?
Oh, that one.
The one where the princess, she falls asleep.
Oh, Sleeping Beauty.
Sleeping Beauty,
yes,
yeah.
Maleficent.
Maleficent, that's the one. Yeah. Like her design in the old Disney film is amazing. That is like the super exaggerated version of I've been pushing too hard on my tablet while sculpting.
Yeah, exactly.
But it can seem like an obvious thing once you start talking about it, just in terms of pure shape language. Like here we're using very soft forms, like everything is very soft and squishy. But with something like Maleficent, it's very pointy, it's very angular, and that does everything.
We had a design teacher who was talking about this, specifically Maleficent, and he was encouraging us to make a little piece of poetry. I'm not saying you have to do that, but it was like one feeling which conveyed the stuff you wanted your character to feel like. When he was talking about Maleficent, he was saying the creators there had used the phrase black fire to convey it. Like, can you think of anything more evil than black fire? So if you have something like that, you just know if this is conveying black fire or not. You just know what kind of character this is.
Yeah, and you can keep going back to that. Yeah. You're like, all right, she has a pink hat now. Does that convey black fire?
Exactly.
No, it doesn't. Okay.
But if you were to just purely look at the description of her, if you look at, she's a pretty woman in her mid-50s who used to be queen or whatever it might be, that's like, okay, you can make 30 different versions of that.
Yeah.
But if she's the former queen and she's black fire, like now you have a whole different area of, now you can approach it from a whole different way.
You can sort of like look at it the same way if you compare. It's a weird comparison, but Sam from Lord of the Rings, and then compare him to Smaug, right? So they're obviously very different characters, but Sam's kind of fat and round. He's the happy, like, companion, and we have Smaug with like super angular, triangular, very pointy stuff. Bad guy, it's just, yeah.
One thing we used to talk about in our design classes is like, would you sit on it? Like, would you sit on Sam? I mean, that's probably quite comfortable. I'm not sure if Sam would appreciate it, but at least you would be very comfortable. If you sit on Smaug, I mean, you're gonna cut your butt.
Yeah, it's not gonna be comfortable.
I like to think about that when I'm sculpting as well. Like, not just would I like to sit on this guy, but like, what would it feel like to touch the different parts? If we're going for happy and I'm touching his forehead, it should feel comfortable.
It should feel happy.
It should feel happy. My hand should feel happy. But if you're doing evil, your hand is gonna bleed.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to sit on his face? Yes or no?
This video turned a little bit weird, but
Not so different from every other video I do, I guess, at this point.
Fair point. So we're talking about the creature kit, or? No.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's where we were.
Right. Yeah. One video you might want to check out as well is we have a video called Sculpting Like a Pro, where we talk about our actual sculpting technique. This is on our YouTube as well, where we actually talk about how do you sculpt, like what kind of brushes do you use, and how do you go about in terms of like your mental attitude when it comes to putting your pen on the pressure on the tablet. And now we're at kind of the stage where you could really just keep on doing this all day long. Now I'm kind of looking over this and being like, where should I work on next?
Yeah.
Because we're at, a few million polys now, and we're at a stage where the major things here are working. If you were to take this to final film production, and of course it will be far more refined, but if you were to zoom out a little bit and blur it, it will probably look exactly the same. Like the main volumes are already here now.
Yeah, and that's basically also like the case if you go back and you look now. Yeah, sure, the shape of the ears has changed a little bit, the shape of the horns, but the overall silhouette is still pretty similar.
And now we got to break up the symmetry. This is really, really important when it comes to designing characters.
Especially along the center line. That's always like symmetry on either side of the face, like far apart. That's not as important because it's harder to recognize. But stuff that's right in the middle of the center line, that's what gives it away that it's symmetrical.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if you're in production, please, for the love of God, don't do this.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Like, because then you're screwing up everything for everyone. But if you're doing concepting, like if you're doing this purely as a concept piece, then break up symmetry. And even if you are giving this to modelers afterwards to keep working on, then just break it up. They can symmetrize it with literally one click in this interface. So whenever you're doing any kind of concepting like this, you're not doing like a neutral A-post model, which is going to be generic. You're doing a model which is conveying something, conveying a feeling or a character or whatever it might be. So get as close as that as you can.
Yeah, it's like when you're handing over a concept piece, having it in like a perfect T-pose doesn't really say anything about the character. So you always want to present it as basically as close to what you want the character to feel like as possible.
Exactly. The cool thing about doing everything in ZBrush as well is that you could easily do a quick poly paint afterwards on top of this, and then just go crazy, really just go add some nice little colors to it. And then what I prefer to do afterwards is simply take a screen grab of it and then take it into Photoshop.
Yeah, there's no real reason to like go full on with texturing at that point, because photo bashing can just convey some really cool stuff about the materials on the character way better and way faster than what you can do with texturing. Well, not way better, but way faster.
Way faster, because at least if you're doing proper texture, you need UVs and everything.
Yeah.
But also one of the cool things about doing this in ZBrush is now we have zero mesh to character, and that means that you can do a quick UV map for this. Like you can throw this into production right away. Sometimes they just need something in it. They need like a proxy.
Yeah.
This character here is almost done, but it's not even done at all. But they want to see what it's going to look like in shot, so they can put it into previs or whatever it might be. So doing concepting in 3D is a really, really huge deal.
I guess just final touches now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just about getting the last stuff in there now. It's nothing much will really change.
So the cool thing about this, again, is that this is real time in 38 minutes. And I mean, there is no way I can sculpt this without the kit.
No.
In this time.
Maybe some genius out there can, but most people can't. And again, it's just, I think that's the whole point of this kit, is to speed up your workflow and really make it a lot better. And don't forget that this kit is now 20% off, so make sure to check it out on the marketplace. And thank you guys so much for watching.
Thanks, guys.